Hey, it's Chris, Liege Games. Let's talk news. News updates. Let's talk sort of the end of January, beginning of February so far. What's new, what's notable, what's on the radar, things that are just of interest to me. Retail, Kickstarter, just news in general that has come out over this past time. So, without any rambling or rants at the beginning of this video, those are coming up elsewhere. You can check those out separately. Let's dive right in. All the cool kids are talking about it, folks. Stonemaier Games just announced their next game to be released, and that is Red Rising. If you're not familiar with Red Rising or the IP it's based on a dystopian alternate future in which we have colonized humans, the solar system, and we have now broken people down into castes. Castes designated by the colors that you see here on the picture. And these castes are, if you're not familiar, a ranking system, basically saying humans at the higher castes are just more valuable members of society than lower ones. And they all have certain characteristics or certain roles that they need to play. This is from the series written by Pierce Brown. You're taking one of these houses or castes and you're trying to rise up against the hierarchical system that is in place. It's a hand management combo card type game from 1 to 6 players, which again is a different take than what we've seen on, the last half dozen or so Stonemaier games. Now, not terribly different than a few. I mean, if you think of Wingspan as sort of along those lines, but a lot of the others in terms of Scythe, Quantum, Tapestry, Pendulum, all of those. Significantly different. I'm going to tell you, for starters, right now, hold your horses. Because it's going to be one of those embargo things. It's going to be one of those things where Stonemaier slowly releases juicy details over the next 3 weeks before the embargo is lifted. Because apparently, per the forums, Board Game Geekers have knowledge that reviewers already have their copies and they're going to be posted sometime around the 3rd week of February. February 22 is the tentative street date in that sense. Now, the Stonemaier games always get a ton sold at pre-order, and with the last two, I think you've also seen a lot go on the secondary market because people blind pre-order nowadays based off of nothing but name alone, and then turn around and yell at us for backing Kickstarters when we know more about the game on Kickstarter than you do about how this game may actually play if you're pre-ordering it this very second. I have not really found any interest in any of the other Stonemaier games. This would be probably the first one, based on the card play you see here in the pictures, that might actually intrigue me. So, am I going to pre-order it? No. I'm going to try and trade for it from someone else that pre-orders it who doesn't like it. You should try it. It's fun. But that's what I'm going to wait to see. I want to see how it plays. I want to see if it's for me. Previously, I don't buy a lot from retail. I don't get a lot from retail in general, except through trades and math trades and things like that. This is no different, but it is something I would be potentially more interested in than a lot of the other titles he has put out in the last decade or so. Again, it's just not a good fit for me. The games he likes and he puts out just are not a good fit with what I like playing. So I recognize the quality that they are often, but you find stuff you like and you don't like, and I just haven't found the one that works for me yet. So we'll see. Now, I mentioned this next one a few weeks ago as sort of a breaking news thing, and they've officially announced it now, and it has a Board Game Geek page, and that's Root, the Marauder expansion, where you're getting several new characters or factions, I guess. Warlord, charismatic, terrifying. He's got a bunch of warriors, and he just wants to dominate, and he lights the woods on fire, literally on fire, which he can also steal items from other players. Stone Seekers, strangers, looking for relics of a lost civilization. You're going to look for deep, deep enemy territory infiltration, and you're going to have very heavily armored creatures here. And they actually mentioned specifically here, and this would be where it would be more of interest to me, because Root has never gotten the appeal from my standpoint because of the significant overhead and asymmetry requiring each player to know what the other team or faction is trying to do in the first place, and having to have 4 people know 4 of them. It just doesn't fit the style of my group. Now, both of these factions, they say, are very suitable for Root's 2-player game. So now it brings the total up to 5 factions that you can use for the 2-player game. And now that would be of serious interest for me. That makes me much more interested. But again, I still have not actually played Root and gotten it to the table. And so I would have to do that first before I would go in on something like this, because inevitably I think this is going to probably be on Kickstarter, and we'll see. I don't know. It's one of those games where I really want to like it, but I just don't ever get the feeling it's going to be a good fit as much as I desire to like it. I want you to want me, sort of thing, if that makes sense. So the next piece of news, this probably flew under a lot of people's radars as well, and I saw it, I sort of thought about it, but I didn't talk about it earlier. In the middle of January, it was announced that Sagrada, the dice-laying, pattern-building, mosaic, stained glass game, is getting a legacy version. How do you do a legacy version with this? Honestly, I have no idea. They announced it, they confirmed it after it sort of broke news, but me personally, I was always more on the Azul side of Sagrada, which reminds me, I probably should put out a couple of this or that's, either which version of Azul or Azul versus Sagrada. So stay tuned. I just gave myself a new idea in the middle of a video. I don't know if this would be of interest, but Legacy is something I'm very fond of. I would have to give this a real serious glance over just by that nature. So if you have any Sagrada fans out there, keep on your radar. They said summer around Gen Con 2021. So again, something just to keep in your radar. Now this one, literally like just announced, Z-Man Games. I think this is a Luke Laurie game. The designer who did Whistle Mountain, as well as Dwellings of Eldervale. His new game is called Cryo. It's a worker placement game set on a frozen planet where after somebody anonymously sabotages your ship, causing you to crash land on Hoth, essentially. And so what you're trying to do is compete as hostile factions to claim and control the caverns on this icy planet. So you're going to be scavenging resources, and I'm assuming that's where a lot of the worker placement side of things is coming in. Using your drones to get sections of the ship, resources, rescuing members of your crew still in cryostasis, and then, settling underground, using technology to build, upgrade, get more missions, or build vehicles to help you out. So you're going to be going back and forth, it sounds like, from both the surface, this blue area, to the caverns and tunnels connected underneath, which offers better survival. So that's about it that we know. And there's not even necessarily a tentative release date on it at this point. But it's not just a pure worker placement. It's a worker placement with some more theme, which is the rare worker placement that I occasionally will glance at more than just a sidelong glance to see if it's of interest. And I don't know. Again, this is one where it's caught my eye. It's going to stay on my wish list sort of as a thinking about it sort of thing. But it's probably going to be, I need to see some serious gameplay, not reviews, gameplay, to know whether or not this is too much worker placement for me, or if it uses worker placement as a part of it where there are other heavier themes and mechanisms being used alongside of things. The theme is unique, the combination is unique, so it's definitely worth keeping on your radar. So next up, this is another game retail-wise. It's been on my radar for a long time, but this really has been the first information in probably like 6 or 8 months on more of the actual details, and that's X-Men Mutant Insurrection. People were calling this, when this was announced, I think last year at like Gen Con, like X-Men Elder Sign Hybrid, or Elder Sign the X-Men reskin, if you will. But now that they've shown some actual gameplay of this, I don't really get the sense that it's exactly like Elder Sign. It seems a bit more complicated. Especially when they give you 8 different plots to tackle during the game, 16 different X-Men to use, and they give you a whole bunch of difficulty. It also plays 1 to 6 players. So all in all, right there, it sets it apart from Elder Sign. And plus, I'm a sucker for the X-Men theme, especially when they've got sort of this 90s sort of vibe going on, when the 90s show was really, that's my childhood. So that speaks to me in a bad way for my wallet. And you can see, they've got a little bit of the matching and a little bit of the what you're having to do to progress, sort of like Elder Sign. But then they've got a lot of other powers and strengths of your team that you can mix and match here. And you have a story that you're trying to do alongside of it. The other added element that they give is that these mutants, depending on how they feel about each other, are going to have bonds. And that can either be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on what their actual relationship is if they're forced to work on the same mission together. So it's something you just need to be aware of. And personally, I don't know. I haven't played Elder Sign enough to know how different this is. So if someone out there can look at this who's more familiar with Elder Sign, I'd be interested to know your details. But you just look at this gloriousness that is the X-Men fighting the Phoenix spread over 3 cards, and the poetry that seems to go with that in terms of how it fits together nicely, it's really going to be hard for me to resist buying at a retail level. Again, as someone who literally just said early in the video that I don't buy at retail. I'm waiting to see more gameplay, and actual video would be nice. I'm sure the Dice Tower is going to have this, and I think they're actually saying that tentatively even that releases end of February. So this time next month, I should have a much better opinion on whether or not I'm going to get this or not. So kind of exciting, kind of terrifying. Last but not least, let's talk about my favorite company, CMON. And I have to think at this point, knowing that the animation collection just finished and we haven't really heard anything else on their radar that's going to be coming out, that Masters of the Universe, which they have the rights for in North America, is most likely going to be their next Kickstarter. Unless somebody has heard some rumors elsewise, I don't really know what else is on their plate at all for 2021. I haven't really heard anything. Maybe another zombie side iteration. But they just released last week a second designer diary for this game. And so the biggest thing is that they're talking about, okay, what, and this was my question, is how are you going to translate sort of what makes this universe unique with He-Man and Skeletor and the battling? What system are you going to give it that, one, sets it apart from the other dungeon crawls that they have so famously done, and one, again, stays true with sort of the theme of Masters of the Universe in the first place? Is it going to be a tower defense? Because it talks about protecting the power within Castle Grayskull, stopping Skeletor trying to control the universe. Power was always at the center of this conflict. Chanel, which I don't want to back this game. I have no interest in He-Man. However, with what Chanel has done with Bloodborne, if he's going to be making this game, I have a lot higher hopes for it than I did when it was first announced. Power, they talk about here, is essentially what your character is expending, and it's used to activate the skills and the abilities, boost it to heroic levels, blah, 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 just like you would expect. But they say at the same time, it's not just a resource for one side. When one side draws upon that power to achieve their goal, the other side responds in the same sort of way, escalating the struggle. It reminds me more of Rise of Moloch, which is one of my, if not my favorite 1v all game, where the more the good guys spend, the more essentially metaphorical ammo the bad guy has then to use back in response. So are you going to want to be minimizing things so you're giving the bad guy, or the evil side in this case, the least ability to scale up to what you're doing? Or are you just going to go all out and say, you know what, let's just juggernaut this thing. Head to head, boom, see what happens. Beyond that, they really don't say a whole lot. Unfortunately, they're only putting out one of these about every month. And the thing that they used to do, where they used to put more of an announcement about what their upcoming next project was when their previous campaign finished, they have not done on the last 2 or 3 campaigns. So as you can see here, the last update from CMON's animation collection is just looking into, you know, more of the Looney Tune protagonists rather than the upcoming projects. So we'll see. They used to be doing it every like 2.5 months between projects. So if that holds true, I think you could see something, especially if you consider animation collection being a smaller, like comic book like collection like I did. You could probably see something maybe early April. That wouldn't really surprise me. Otherwise, I could see it always being even out in May. And personally, I'd be okay with it if it was delayed further. The further this gets delayed, the better for my wallet. The less I know about it, the better, because the more interested I am going to be, especially, like I said, seeing Chanel as one of the designers. So that's it. Board game news roundup. Those are the things that caught my eye over the last 2 weeks or so. Those are the things that I think are worth noting. I know I missed stuff. What caught your eye? What is catching your eye going forward? What non-Kickstarter stuff? I know this is a little less popular sometimes. That's where all the clicks are in Kickstarters. But what retail stuff has caught your eye recently? I mentioned a few of mine. So what are you guys looking at right now? Let me know in the comments section. I'd like to hear it. I'd like to see what else people are looking at, because Every once in a while, you guys throw something out there that I've absolutely never heard of, and for better or for worse, I can either easily cross it off or darn it, add it to my wish list. So I like being surprised by that. So as always, let me know what you think. Let me know how you're feeling. We're shooting up. Subscribe if you like it. Thanks, guys. Stay classy. Have a great week. Have fun. Thanks.